Welcome to Spotcast, episode 63. This is actually season 3, episode 2. We're covering Lower Decks Envoys. But before we do that, let me introduce the rest of the gang here. My name is Tim Mitra. I'm in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm joined once again by Jonathan Kuline and Mr. Mississauga.
Hello there.
And we're also joined by Jaime Lopez Jr. in Seattle, Washington.
How's it going?
Or Mr. and Mrs. Seattle, Washington. I wonder if people actually go and look up Mr. and Mississauga.
There are probably people who in far off places think that's the name of the city I live in.
Yeah? Mr. Saga? Or
Mr. and Mrs. Saga?
Yeah. Yeah, or either that or they're the two people that are on the show that don't really say very much, Mr. and Mrs. Saga. Anywho, yeah, so here we are. Back again. We'll be back I guess we're going to be back until sometime in October.
22 more weeks. Woo!
22 more weeks of Spotcast. Woohoo! If I lived so long. Alrighty. Well, before we get into the rest of the stuff, we usually start off with some fact checks. So let me just hit off the fact check right away. So I was talking with Jerry O'Connell, and it is Jerry O'Connell, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have to fact check that. But anyway, Jerry O'Connell, he stars in a show recently, just last year, called Carter, which is, I think he's like a cop show star who's gone back to his hometown where he's helping them solve crimes and that kind of stuff. So, but he's actually a TV star, not a cop. So it's a variation on a cop show, right? But you know what? It is still a cop show. Probably won't watch it ever again. I was talking about The Expanse last week, and I couldn't remember the name of the thing that's sort of everybody's like the central. It's the what do you call it? The
MacGuffin.
MacGuffin. Thank you very much. It is the proto-molecule is what they call it, and they never really define it, but it's sort of the thing that the thing that's making all the weirdness happen in the show. So I can't tell you what the weirdness is. And last week, Jonathan was talking about Michael Chiklis's TV show where he played a cop. I believe you were looking for The Shield.
You got it. You nailed it.
And he was like a really nasty, brutal cop kind of guy. Like, yeah.
Yep, that's the one.
And we did mention Hill Street Blues last week. That was, I think it was the first one where people were sort of not straight up cops, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you got something.
And I got something too. Yeah, we were talking about, they made a reference in the first episode of Lower Decks to a Klingon with an eye patch, and we were speculating maybe that was a reference to some existing character, and I can't remember which one of us said maybe it was Christopher Plummer's character from Star Trek VI, but of course he blew up good in that movie, so it couldn't possibly be him because we now know that this takes place in the future, so he's dead.
Okay. Well, then there was a guy with an eye patch today.
Well, we'll get to that.
Spoilers.
Yeah,
yeah, spoilers. But yes, we actually do presumably meet the Klingon that was being referenced to.
Oh, is it? You think he was the same guy? Okay, all right. Alrighty, so let's dig into the headlines. Jaime, you're up.
Yeah, this one has a really funny title, so I'm going to read what The Verge put here, that Disney has no Fox left to give as it renames TV studio to 20th Television. So,
oh, really?
Yes,
20th Century Fox TV studio.
To the people at The Verge,
bravo. Name dropped.
Fox to give?
Yeah.
You're bravoing the Fox joke? Or?
I'm bravoing that headline. That is very, very well done, yes.
Yes, and you should know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they're chopping off the Fox branding off of what they had acquired. So
really,
now you'll have your Disney television studios that are split into ABC Signature, 20th Television, and Touchstone.
So it's not 20th
Television.
Century anymore either.
No, it's not 20th Century Television.
They have no centuries to give either.
It's a challenging brand to deal with if you're trying to keep it vaguely the same and then still lop off pieces. It's
I don't know.
Yeah,
I like me some 19th century television.
Yeah, why wouldn't they have just named it 21st? I don't know. Like it seemed like it was time for an update, anyways.
Well, and on Futurama they call it 30th century, don't they?
Yeah, I think that's the joke. Yeah.
Oh, well, interesting. All right, next
one is a trailer for the Hilary Swank vehicle Away, which is a Netflix movie coming out in September 4th, which covers an elite international team of astronauts that have to go on a 3-year mission to Mars and deal with not only the science fiction drama but also sort of the family drama of what happens to your friends and family while you're gone for those 3 years. So this is apparently going to be a 10-episode series. Take the trailer, check it out.
That's a pretty good get. Like? That's a pretty good get to get Hilary Swank on a TV show. That's an Oscar winner. That's not nothing.
Well, no, she was in that show. She was in that show about John Paul Getty's grandson that got kidnapped. She played the mother.
Gee, I never saw that one.
Very good. She's very good in it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was fortunate enough to do an interview with her way back when I was a writer, and she was delightful, but intimidating. She already won like 2 Oscars. It was like, whoa,
wow,
yeah, because she won for Boys Don't Cry, and then she won again for the boxing movie. What
$1 Million Baby.
$1 Million Baby. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Great movie.
Yeah, and she was like super, super nice, like really down to earth, really easy to talk to for an interview. Like I liked her a lot more after I met her.
I did see the trailer for this. I watched it a bit. So it reminds me a bit of Interstellar and that sort of the family plot that happens in that, where, you know, the father goes away on a mission and he's like gone for a week and his entire family ages like 80 years or something, you know, while he's gone. So,
yeah, this leads to the great internet meme that everybody has where he says, you know, this little maneuver is going to cost us 54 years. And
right.
You just attach it to anything that is unreasonably slow, like upgrading your phone or waiting at the DMV or something.
Wow, I've never actually heard that as a meme, but that's an interesting meme.
Yeah, if you go into Reddit's memes subreddit, it definitely comes up quite a bit.
Cool. All right, JPK, you're up.
Yeah, I got a couple things. So some movie news this week. It had been sort of rumored out there for a little while now, but kind of weird one. So the rumored and yet seemingly unlikely Tron 3 has a director and apparently a star. So the story is that
is it the dude?
Well, yeah. In a shocking turn of events, it's a white guy. Garth Davis, who did Lion, which was a well-received, critically acclaimed movie a few years ago that got a bunch of Oscar nominations, including a Best Picture, is on tap to be the director of Tron 3, and Jared Leto is going to be the star, apparently. Okay.
Not Jeff Bridges, he's too busy?
Well, I mean, he came back for Tron Legacy, right? So it was possible. So it's very strange because the film was kind of not unsuccessful. It made $400 million globally. That's the Tron Legacy, the second. So the original movie, obviously, 1982. Tron Legacy came out in 2010. So we're talking, like, by the time this comes out, we'll assume it's probably 2 years from now. We're talking 12 years later. So no, it's not quite the big gap that there was between the first and the second, but that's still quite a long time and kind of strange because it was not a hit, but it wasn't a miss. So it's kind of a strange story. I'm not quite sure what to make of it, and I can't decide if I'm excited or not. You guys have any strong feelings about Tron?
Well, I mean, Tron in general was like the original movie. I mean, with a big chunk of cheese, but it was an interesting movie. I mean, there was a lot of people that wanted to ride this, what do they call, light cycles and all that kind of stuff, and there was a lot of video games that were spawned from the whole Tron idea, right? Like even Snake on your Nokia phone, I think, came from Tron. But from that, like, it was an interesting idea that, because back then, like, the culture was, you had people playing video games and you had a whole lot of anti-video game people, and the whole idea of a character being sucked into the game kind of thing and, becoming part of the game, that was kind of an interesting concept, right? I guess Jumanji sort of the reverse of that, right? But and then when it came out, I mean, I to be honest with you, I kind of wondered, like, was it like a cash grab when it came back out? But then they had, Olivia Wilde and Jeff Bridges came back and played dual roles, and it was, I really did enjoy the movie. It had a sort of Blade Runner-esque spin to it, not from the point of view, like from the point of view of future tech, right? It was well done.
It was well done. Yeah.
I mean, I'd watch it again, but like, do I need to watch another one? I'm not sure.
Yeah, and the stories that are out there. So Deadline, I will give them credit. Deadline.com broke it. They said it's not necessarily a straight sequel, so they're still a little murky as to what exactly it's going to be. So there's not a lot of details. So because I guess initially after Tron Legacy came out, there was discussion. Well, will there be a third one? And they had sort of hemmed and hawed about whether there'd be another one, and they didn't feel like it was strong enough to necessarily warrant another one. But they're going to do a third movie. So the question is, what's it about, and how does it tie into the sort of Tron Legacy mythos? It'll be interesting to see how they build that together. And Leto, I mean, some people, he can be a little polarizing. Some people love and some people hate, and some people are indifferent. But he's an interesting actor, he's an interesting performer, and sometimes he's a real hit. Sometimes he really nails it, and sometimes he's in Blade Runner 2049. And
that wasn't bad.
His performance was bat crap crazy in that movie. He's the most inexplicable portion of that movie by far. The weird, like, you know.
I didn't really like his Joker portrayal either. Suicide Squad.
Yeah. Like I said, he could be a little polarizing. Some people love his performances because he takes choices. He's really method. He goes in and does weird stuff, but then he can also turn people off because he's kind of weird. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what that kind of performer brings to that kind of universe. It could be good. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next up, some bad news. I'm gonna flip flop back and forth here. There was a bloodletting at DC Comics this week, a crisis, if you will, at DC Comics. Apparently, they just gutted their staff. Major layoffs. They laid off their editor-in-chief. They laid off a whole slew of people, and apparently, this sort of stems from the merger or the acquisition. I guess AT&T purchased Warner Media, and so there's all kinds of speculation as to sort of what led to this. But when AT&T merged, it took over everything, including Warner Brothers, Warner Media, DC Comics, HBO, all that stuff. They launched HBO Max, and when they did that, everyone figured, well, that DC Universe app that has the Doom Patrol show, the Swamp Thing show, Stargirl, Titans, Harley Quinn cartoon, all that stuff was going to be in real deep trouble. So there was already eyes on that being a thing, but they also have gone further, and they haven't necessarily. So it says they laid off the majority of the staff working on DC Universe. So nobody knows what is going to happen there, if they're just going to move things over to HBO Max or if it's going to go to CW. And they also they let off a huge number of people in the actual DC editorial side for the comic book side. So people are waiting for the other shoe to drop. Are they going to start canceling books? What's going to happen there? So they fired their editor-in-chief, Bob Harris, Hank Canals, who's been there for years. He's the VP of publishing. They fired, did their digital strategy chief, their senior story editor, their executive editor. Like, they really kind of just cleaned house. Wow. So comic books are in a weird place right now because of COVID and because of a waning attention span for that as a medium. And yet it is still one of the huge generators for stories that have been adapted for television, for movies, for other things. It is the breeding ground for talent, as it has been for 50 years, or more accurately 100 years. So this is a really huge story that I don't know that got a ton of attention this week, but this could be really impactful if they're talking about scaling down the comic book, one of the titans of comic books in DC Comics. I mean, we're talking Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Green Lantern, Aquaman. These are household names. These are huge tentpole franchises for Warner Brothers. So I don't think we're going to see those titles necessarily go away. But I mean, if they're cutting that much on their editorial side, it's going to be an impact. So I don't know what the next shoe to drop is going to be. But personally, as a comic fan, I'm a little nervous, and I'm certainly, my heart goes out to these people who have lived, breathed, and bled for comic books for most of their careers and have produced some amazing work. And it's scary to be losing your job in this environment right now. And it's particularly scary as a comic fan to see this whole thing is potentially impactful.
Is this because of like COVID and they couldn't adapt to like an online, working from home kind of thing? Or
no,
is this just because of this large company buying another smaller company?
Yeah, I think there's probably some of that, and I think there may be some streamlining things happening in there as well. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see what comes next. Are they going to continue to publish the same number of books every month that they've been putting out? Are we going to see cancellations? Are we going to see a reboot of the universe? Are they going to put new talented people on board? I mean, they still have a lot of very talented people under exclusive contract. Jim Lee is still there as the chief creative officer. Brian Michael Bendis is one of the foremost writers in comics, is still one of their lead writers for a lot of their big titles. So there's still tons of talent working there. It's just a question of how this direction takes them. What also remains to be seen is, again, what becomes of DC Universe, the app. what's going to happen with Doom Patrol, what's going to happen with Titans, Stargirl, what's going to happen with those that Harley Quinn cartoon people love. It'll be interesting to see where that stuff starts to shuffle. If they are going to pull the plug on it, are they going to keep that stuff? Are they going to move it around? It's a big sort of first domino, but I get the feeling that there's more to come. And it'll be interesting to see if we see any of those trends. I mean, comic books right now are at a struggling place because as a medium, the weekly ritual of going to the comic stores and keeping those little stores that sell comics afloat has been really difficult in this environment because people, you can't congregate in a comic store and, chew the fat about your comics, and going every week is a challenge, and flipping through the old bins is a challenge. A lot of that model's moving to the, collected editions you can order from Amazon or digital comics, but digital comics aren't making the same kind of money. So yeah, it's like I say, this is a pretty meaty story that could have ramifications across all of pop culture.
Right. Interesting. I misread the next story, but you'll correct me, right?
Oh, well, maybe I will. Another story. So we've got another cast member for the Rogue One prequel series about Diego Luna's character Cassian Andor that's coming to Disney Plus. So Adria Arjona, I don't know if I'm saying that right, has joined the cast. She most recently and most famously was one of the stars of the Good Omens series that was on Amazon. And I thought she was fantastic in that. I really liked that series. So I'm encouraged that this already had a pretty good cast. We had Diego Luna obviously reprising his role. They already had Stellan Skarsgård and some other good cast members lined up for it. Alan Tudyk, I think, has already signed back on to be K2SO, the droid that, spoilers, bites it in Rogue One.
I was going to say, don't they all bite it in Rogue One?
They do, yeah. Again, if you haven't watched it yet, sorry, it's been like 4 years. So, yeah. But yeah, like I think this is pretty good news. We've got another good cast member, and I really enjoyed her performance there. So that'll be really cool to see what she brings to that as well.
Cool.
And this one,
I just don't understand why we need a Rogue One sequel, but there are other stories.
Well, it's not a sequel. It's a prequel, right? It's supposed to be the dark side of the rebellion,
right? It's got
a
finite end,
No, but I like the idea. Like, I thought it was an interesting, and it was one of the parts of that I really liked the most was
his character, yeah.
Well, just the idea that there is this dark side of the rebellion, that there is this like Black Opsy kind of side,
sure,
where of course somebody would have to be an assassin. Of course somebody would have to be doing Black Ops stuff. Of course somebody would have to be sort of doing the dirty work,
getting it done.
Yeah, but it really hadn't been touched on before. Star Wars always sort of stayed a little bit on the clean side of like the rebellion is the pure and the good, and the Empire is the dark and the bad. And Cassian was the first one, like that. The one scene in Rogue One where he just he's like, the guy, he's afraid the other guy's going to get caught, and he's not, and he doesn't want the guy talking, and he just puts a blaster in his stomach and kills him.
Yeah.
That's not something we would have seen from a quote unquote heroic character in Star Wars. Han Solo is a smuggler when he puts a hole in Greedo. That's probably the closest we've come. Otherwise, it was a pretty bold statement on the kind of person that Cassian was, and really kind of set the tone for that movie. That like, this is not your regular Star Wars flick, which I think was one of the things that a lot of people responded favorably to. So I kind of like to see more of that world.
Right. Okay. Cool.
And my final thing here is for you, Tim.
Yay!
This is for you.
And Jaime. This is Jaime's doctor.
This is Jaime's doctor?
Oh wait, no.
I didn't start with his doctor.
Wait, what the heck's this?
No. Oh, no. This is for you, Tim. Christopher Eccleston is returning as the 9th Doctor.
Oh, you mean my favorite Doctor? That's what you're saying.
Your favorite Doctor is returning as the 9th Doctor in a new series of audio dramas. Christopher Eccleston, who was very briefly Doctor Who when it was rebooted in the mid-2000s, I guess it was.
10 years ago, actually.
10 years ago, precisely. He was the Doctor, and he was the Doctor for one season, and then he departed, and he has not returned for anything. He didn't return for the 50th anniversary, didn't return for any of the specials, even though they have reunited some of the Doctors in the past. But he is going to be doing this, one of the Doctor Who audio stories, which they have done a few of these so far, and they brought back some of the other Doctors, but it's very kind of surprising. I don't know about you, buddy, but I'm surprised that he is making this return. So by May 2021, they're going to be doing the first volume, and he's going to be reprising his role in these audio dramas. How you like that?
I don't think any of the Doctors have gotten away from being the Doctor. Like, I can't think of a single one of them who didn't have to reprise their role. Like, maybe except for one of them came back on tape, but not one of them hasn't come back for like a Christmas special or something like that. I'm pretty sure that they've pretty much all done it. I mean, mind you, maybe the later Doctors, the ones that I skipped right after Peter Davidson, I stopped watching Doctor Who. But
I don't know. I mean, this guy has sort of steadfastly sounded like he had a bit of a negative experience, and it seems like he's warmed up to it a little bit. But
he had some behind the scenes issues that weren't not something we want to sort of talk about on air. But I mean, he had some personal issues, right, to deal with at the time, some demons, right. So maybe that's why he didn't continue with the idea, right?
Yeah, but I mean, again, I'm surprised. I'm surprised that move has come, and I'm surprised that he's going to be there. But I'm encouraged. I'm keen to know how they're going to rewrite that, or what they're going to add to his mythos.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like from a visual, I mean, like every Doctor. In fact, there are some people who played the Doctor in radio plays and even in movies that never played him on the TV show, right? Mm-hmm. No, just because they're just voice actors, right? Mm-hmm. And that's essentially what he's coming back as. Although he's a recognizable voice actor, right?
Yeah, when they did that, recently as well. Donna and the 10th Doctor were in one of those audio dramas together. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So they've been sort of doing this, and it's been out there that these are happening. But again, I think the real sort of surprise is that Eccleston, of all people, is going to come back and do one.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he did get eclipsed by David Tennant, for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, and then Matt Smith. I mean, those two are both amazing Doctors.
It's true. Yeah. All right. I mean, I think you've got something for us.
Yeah, so very much in the same way that Hamilton came to Disney Plus, the Broadway play, put on videotape and then streamed to the masses on the World Wide Web. The Diana musical, based on the life of Princess Diana, was pre-COVID supposed to come out and be on Broadway, and that's just not going to be feasible anytime soon. So it's going to have a first here where it's going to debut on Netflix before it actually opens on stage on Broadway in 2021.
So it is going to do a run, right? Like, because I mean, being a stage actor is completely different than being a movie or TV actor, right? And I just watched again yesterday. I watched a concert that was broadcast by on Vimeo, right? Like they basically just the band got together and played, and just they just streamed it out and pay what you can kind of deal, right? Like I could see plays and things like that being done in that format, right? I don't see why not, right? But yeah,
and there's back when we could go to movie theaters, there was those advertisements you'd see before even the movie trailer started of like, hey, the Met is going to be on one night only. They're going to have The King and I or Cats or something, and you can come watch it at the theater. And it's a recorded version of the play production. It's not like a made for film cinema sort of screenplay. So I think that's what's going on here. Apparently the Broadway play is planned to open on May 25th of 2021, and this will hit Netflix somewhere in early 2021.
Cool. I guess you got to do what you got to do nowadays, right?
Yeah. Everybody's having to change their whole plans, right? We talked about Mulan, I think, the last week about that going
and
to
Hamilton.
Streaming.
Yeah, Hamilton was the other one. Yeah.
All
right, next.
Yeah, in sadder news regarding Netflix, the creators of Avatar: The Last Airbender, the animated series, have quit the production, or their role in the production of the live-action adaptation, over creative differences with Netflix. So that's not the greatest sign. It's not to say that it'll be bad, but it's not usually in your statistical favor when the creators don't feel like you're following the spirit as they see it of your property.
So I've never seen the Avatar Last Airbender animated show, right? I'm sure you guys have probably watched it, right? Mm-hmm. And I was told to stay away from the last live action movie they did with a 10-foot pole, probably by you, Jonathan. But what do you guys think of it as a vehicle, anyway, as a story and etc.? Is it worthwhile getting into? These are the crickets I was talking about.
I mean, is that to me? I mean, because So I think it is. I haven't, truth be told, watched bookend to bookend. I've seen a lot of episodes though. I probably should go and just binge through it on Netflix. I think when I was watching it, it was probably like on Nickelodeon or something. So I would watch a lot of it, but then like miss because I didn't record. But it's a series where there isn't a lot of like straight up mustache twirling villainy and perfect, heroism. There's a lot of gray. It's a lot more mature in terms of the themes that it deals with than you would think, given that it's ostensibly a kids show of this go on an adventure and save the world kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, it's surprising because as the story on The Verge points out, this was something that when they announced they were going to do a live action adaptation, they were saying that they brought out the two co-creators and said like this was part of the huge sale of it was Michael Dante DiMartino and Brian Konietzko, and the fact that they after 2 years are out, it makes you wonder what is going on.
Well, we'll keep a watch on this one. And I think speaking of airbending, Mr. David Blaine the magician has announced that come August 31st he will have his next stunt live streamed as a YouTube original, David Blaine's Ascension, where he has apparently watched the movie Up and said, yay, with enough balloons I can fly around and I'm going to float across the Hudson River from New Jersey to New York. So there you go.
Hasn't that been, weren't people like strapping helium balloons to lawn chairs and stuff? Like, hasn't this been done? Like, why is this a groundbreaking David Blaine event?
I don't know, but the teaser trailer, it's got me like, yeah, I'll watch.
Really? Wow.
I mean, really, he may as well be flying his balloon over 1,000 shards of glass, because the Hudson River, if you fall in there, you're going to die anyways. So
right, but you can land a plane on it. It's so full of crap, right?
Yeah, exactly. You can just put the landing gear down and coast.
Yeah, that's a joke, by the way. Movie joke. All right, guess what, folks? We are at the point of the show where we celebrate the latest Star Trek vehicle, and this one is season 1, episode 2 of Lower Decks, episode named Envoy. And this week, Jaime Lopez Jr. is going to give us the play-by-play, and Jonathan and I will do our best to mock him.
So this episode begins with a glowing point of light energy being boards the ship, as they are wont to do in Star Trek. Except this time, it encounters Mariner and Tendi. And Mariner immediately tackles the being and threatens to shove it into a pod until it says, okay, rather than taking you over, I can do stuff for you. I can rearrange matter. And she's like, cool, make me one of those really great purple striped tricorders. And it's like, that's going to take a lot of energy. Do it or go back in the pod. All right. So it does that. And she's like, hey, come on, dude. It needs a power cable or a power cell. He's like, oh, okay, it takes more. And each time this little energy being does this, it starts shrinking even smaller and smaller until eventually it sort of just flies off as Tendi and Mariner go to try out their nifty cool purple striped tricorder, and the being collides with Captain Freeman. And this one, it seems to be a loose end that maybe will get addressed somewhere later in the season, but I think that's the last we see of this little energy being.
Well, I love when he does it. He collides with her and he says, die, mortal, as he tries to I think he's trying to either attack or inhabit or something the captain, but it seems like he just sort of goes poof. I think the idea is he doesn't have enough juice left to actually do anything, and he just sort of disapparates.
Yeah, I couldn't tell if he just had evaporated, as you mentioned, or fizzled out, or if that's like a loose thread for the future. But it's definitely a very atypical take on a trope we've seen on Star Trek various series.
Yeah, very funny homage.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting too that I think that this is sort of indication of the fact we're going to get these little short introductory vignettes. Like one of the things that if you watch the credits of Rick and Morty, and of course you all watch the credits of Rick and Morty, right? They always have like a little 20-second, 30-second bit at the very end. It's kind of sort of the same sort of thing. It's like it doesn't advance the plot of the actual story of the episode you're watching, but these little things by themselves could become like they're almost like shorts in their own way, right? So,
but it was funny. I definitely set a tone because I laughed out loud because it is such a trope. Like as soon as you see I think wasn't there's a TNG episode that starts the same way, right? It goes in and it goes into Troy and makes her pregnant or something. Isn't that one of the TNG episodes?
Yeah, and one of them goes after the girl from Voyager, early season. She ends up leaving, and
yeah, so it's like it's such a Star Trek trope, and to turn it on its head with having Mariner just like tackle it and extort it was hilarious. Yeah. Hilarious.
Well, and in the original series, to have like a villain, just sort of like the undescribable villain that, or whatever that they could have, or protagonist or antagonist in the story, they would put a piece of like silk with a tie dye on it over the camera lens and play weird music, and that was the alien that possessed these people. And it was the guy that had the relationship with the non-corporeal being and on the planet, and Kirk was coming to rescue him, and then there's a number of times when these kind of non-corporeal entities attack, and then you've got even like Q, I suppose, could be in the same sort of sense, right?
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah. I mean, there's another really funny trope in the middle of this story. Hopefully Helmy gets it. Well, this is the test. We'll find out if
yeah, we'll see how well I took my notes.
Yeah.
So we roll into Boimler getting the command assignment to escort General Corrin to Tolgana 4. And we also have, so he's really pumped about that. And separately, Rutherford is pumped for a completely different reason because he has just emerged from the Jeffries tubes and he's excited to just recalibrate stuff, just getting stuff working.
Was he pulling cable in the Jeffries tubes?
Just yanking his cable in the Jeffries tubes where nobody
and he's got blisters
around.
all over his hands, he says.
Yeah.
But following up from the last time, Tendi is wanting to watch the pulsar with Rutherford, but really he's just so busy with all his engineering tasks. The only way he can get time to do so is, in his opinion, to switch careers altogether in Starfleet. We cut back over to Boimler, who's like pretty excited to be part of the mission, but discovers that Mariner is not only taking part in the mission to escort the Klingon diplomat, she is also commanding the mission with him as the co-pilot. So he's very quickly losing all of his mojo. We see the bit that we had seen in the trailers about this is the shuttle with a blast shield, and Mariner's just sort of like making the blast shield go up, blast shield go down, sort of thing.
Yeah. Blast shield.
Yeah.
Blast shield.
Switching to the other track, we've got Rutherford requesting a transfer out of engineering and getting the most impossibly good reaction ever with the huge fake out, right? Like requests, approved or granted, or I'm sure that wherever you're going, you'll be a great addition to their team. Like I've never heard any manager ever have that reaction to somebody wanting to leave.
Yeah, and did you catch that was Paul Scheer, the voice of Paul Scheer, the comedian, writer, actor, as the chief engineer.
No, I didn't catch that. I didn't catch that on the listen.
Yeah.
So we do meet General Corrin, who has an eye patch and is presumably the eye patched Klingon from whom Mariner had gotten the batleth from in the previous episode. And he immediately gets attacked by Mariner while Boimler just freaks the hell out of like, what are you doing? Why are you attacking the diplomat? But it turns out it's all in good fun because General Corrin and Mariner know each other from some off the books gray ops stuff as described there. And they do what we've seen many Klingons do when they get with their best pals, and Mariner and Corrin get drunk on blood wine and just want to be dropped off in Little Kronos section of Tolgana 4. But apparently Tolgana 4 requires a security confirmation code to access the planets, and this will become important later. Corrin leaves with the shuttle in his drunken stupor, which strands Mariner and Boimler, and this is where we spend sort of most of their part of the story as they're realizing that Tolgana 4 is protected by an ion field that restricts comms and transporters, so they're going to have to walk their way to some other opportunity to figure a way out. And apparently speed walking not only conserves energy but is something that Section 31 does, so I look forward to watching Michelle Yeoh speed walk in the presumed Section 31 series, or maybe in season 3 of Discovery.
It would be a hilarious homage if they did that.
Just shuffling along along at a rapid pace. So they end up talking to various people in this like little marketplace area, right? They talk to a Klingon woman who's a food vendor and just unreasonably aggressive. We see the Kalons, which was a name that which tickled me. I know it has nothing to do with the Kalons from the Orville, but the overlap phonetically amused me. We also see a whole bunch of other aliens, including the Taxors, who are not only blue and communicate in guttural tones and have a treaty with the Federation, but apparently Boimler thinks he can speak their language and he can't. He has this weird non-grammatical profane conversation while trying to get some help and accidentally ends up insulting this teenage Taxor. Mariner sort of saves the day by taking that individual's wallet and supposedly throwing it away, and the Taxor goes like, "Oh man, my dad's gonna get on my case," So apparently this is a child and not an adult. And then we smash back over to Rutherford, who has switched to the command track in his red uniform. And he's with Commander Ransom, who puts Rutherford through these insane holodeck bridge simulations to see, what he's made of as a commander. And there's just increasingly more chaotic sort of situations, even though it's hypothetically easier, right? It's like, okay, we're caught in this temporal rift. What are we going to do? Everybody's dying. We lost 105% of the crew. It's like, wait, what? How do we lose more
How is
people
it even
than we
possible?
Yeah. And then in another scenario, they like lose the kindergarten and the pre-K, and Ransom loves it. He's like,
every child on the place is dead.
Yeah. It's like, hey, let's try another one on a ship with even more children. It's like so messed up.
So the first exercise is like an extremely difficult one, right?
Yeah.
And then the second one is like basic, like the computer even says basic training.
Yeah.
And then he loses the kindergarten and the pre-K class. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's try the Janeway maneuver. Yeah.
The Janeway protocol. What is this?
Yeah. Are you sure, Captain?
Yeah, exactly.
That whole scene was hilarious. The whole Rutherford subplot this week was very funny, but that part was hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right, Tim. That first one was like, we're fine, and then suddenly this temporal rift opens, and we've lost shields, and the warp core is about to explode. And the other one was like, why are they even bothering the captain? It's like, Captain, there's this meteor asteroid in our path. Should we move? It's like, really, dude? Do you think? Why are you even bothering the captain here? Just move out of the way. But somehow that was the one where like kindergartens and pre-K were lost.
Yeah. And he says, you should use the Janeway maneuver. He goes, which is? And he goes, yeah, good one.
Good one.
Yeah. They left that to our imagination as to what that would end up being. So we go back to Boimler and Mariner back on Tolgana 4, and Mariner has gone off to go relieve herself from the many juices of the blood wine.
Well, that line was really funny too. The line where she says, "I have to go blood pee some blood wine."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So gross.
So while she's away, Boimler's there, and he gets propositioned by a sexy lady in red who says that she understands all of his fantasies because she can read his mind basically. But Mariner stops her because it turns out that is an anabage that'll implant eggs in Boimler's throat, but that she can still read his mind even though she's turned her face back into this like weird like cobra frilled lizard looking sort of thing that still proclaims that Boimler still wants Jamaharon, I think is what
Jamaharon, yeah. It's from that great episode where Picard goes to Risa, right?
Oh, is that what that's from?
Yeah, do you remember that's the one where Riker tells him to buy this, make sure you buy one of these statues, and he buys the statue, and then everybody sees the statue which says he wants Jamaharon. So Riker's trying to get Picard laid, and Picard has no idea why people keep coming up and propositioning him.
Right, okay.
Continuing in Rutherford's, career changes, we find him with Dr. Tana and Tendi in sickbay, and while he's good, from the mechanical aspects of dealing, with biological functions, he very clearly doesn't have good bedside manner, as he's told to help calm down and appease the emotions of somebody who turns out has dilithium burns, and Rutherford's like, oh, there's a very low chance of you dying. Yeah, how much? much? 18%. He's like, what? Oh yeah, 20% now. You want to get the heart rate down? And it's like, dilithium is, oh my God, man, how are you even alive? And the guy's freaking out. And the doctor's like, all right, look, man, like if you don't get better bedside manner, like you can't do this job, right? So she sends Tendi over to be like, hey, everything's looking good. You're okay. Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, that robot man said I was dying.
So then we continue with Rutherford as he's with Shax, the security officer, who puts Rutherford through the combat simulation smorgasbord, where he gets attacked by all of these Borg drones. But thankfully, Rutherford is quick to realize, like, hey, maybe my little implant thing can help me out. And it does, because it calculates the perfect comeback strategy. And he starts whooping insane Borg butt, where, you know, he's just ripping off limbs and slapping them with it. And he gets knocked down, but like Jackie Chan's himself back up to immediately like punch and kick everyone. And Shax is just like, oh my God, like normally I put new recruits to this scenario so they understand how to deal with defeat, but you aced it. You know, he's loving it. And I thought that was a fun little sequence watching, you know, in the animated format. I think it works way funnier because they can, that would have been hard to sell.
And they went fully slapstick too. They went really slapstick with it, where he's, you know, not only is he kicking their butt, but he's also, yeah, like you say, he's ripping off their arm and slapping them in the face with it. And yeah, it was really, really funny too.
So we come back to Mariner and Boimler, and Mariner warns Boimler about, you know, the Andorian bar, and he's like, oh, what are you talking about? Like, Andorians are founding members of the Federation. Like, it'll be cool. And they run across some Andorians who are pummeling an Elder, and Boimler's like, stop that. Phaser's a guy. Turns out the Elder is actually a thieving shapeshifter, which I looked up, and apparently that is a Vendorian, a species last seen in the animated series.
Ooh.
Yeah. I didn't recognize that one. I was hoping maybe one of you two guys did.
Nice catch.
Yeah, fun fact there.
There you go.
So this results in a bar brawl that really only comes to an end when Mariner screams, Kirk hands, like slaps a dude, phasers in the air. He's like, all right, next 5 rounds are on me. As it turns out, it was really on the taxer because she had stolen that guy's wallet.
Right.
So she finds a way to get through things. And, you know, after all this, Boimler's just super bummed out. He's like, look, Mariner, you like never study, but apparently you've been places and you're just, you know, you've got it all set for you. And I study hard and I'm just suck at this job. And he throws his communicator at the wall and it lands in a puddle of water. And we'll come back to
this is where the best line in the entire thing is. He says, I'll end up on a research asteroid and I'll get, you know, which will get destroyed. And the only way they'll find out about my fate is by looking at my blurry log videos.
Yeah. Which is the plot of about 10 episodes of Star Trek over the last 50 years.
And you're right. The way he puts it, that they'll have to spend a bunch of time trying to figure out what happened after his demise. Yeah.
And that's where this show really is starting to really win already. Like they are tapping into 50 years of absurdity in storytelling that it's great. It's just really great.
So we come back to Shax, who introduces Rutherford to the rest of the security team, proclaiming that his blood runs yellow and black. But Rutherford spies an engineer coming out of the Jeffrey tubes, and he's like, you know, I really can't do this. I got to go back to engineering. And again, Shax does the like opposite manager thing of like, all right, you know, it's great having you and good luck in your endeavors.
Yep, you got to be true to yourself, son.
Yeah. And they all start cheering for him. And then we're back on the planet, and Mariner and Boimler are greeted by a Ferengi who says, you know, greetings, humans. My shuttle is just beyond that ridge, and I can help you. And Mariner's like, I think he's a Bolian. And Mariner's like, what are you talking about? Dude, look at his ears. Look at his teeth. Look at the way he's even like holding his hands in that greedy way that Ferengis do. This dude's totally a Ferengi. All right. And he's like, all right, man, you claimed that you had a shuttle here. The only way you could have had that is if you had a landing code that let you on the planet. What's your landing code? And after a little bit from the Ferengi, you know, he says, give me your profit, and pulls out a blade. And and Boimler, like, you know, very keenly phasers away the blade, and the Ferengi, like, you know, scurries away.
Yeah.
And
interesting that they chose a voice that sounded like, was it the kid who played on Deep Space Nine? Was his name Moog?
Nog.
Nog,
yeah. See, the voice sounded very much like Nog, who's no longer with us.
Yeah, he passed away this year. Yeah, Aaron Eisenberg. Yeah.
So continuing that line, Mariner and Boimler discover Corrin in this drunken nap, and they say, "Well, we just have to get him to the embassy." So they just drag him there, drunk, and throw him right in front of the doorway. And they've accomplished their mission. And Mariner tells Boimler to hey, keep it between us. What happened? Where I thought the Ferengi was a Bolian, and it went wrong. He's like, "Oh yeah, totally, I will." And smash cut to Boimler and the whole crew of the lower decks in their lounge, and he's just having a lot of fun at her expense, right? Mm-hmm. And Rutherford ends up apologizing to Tendi about the pulsar of hey, I guess we would watch it together because turns out I'm back in engineering and I've got all these things to do in the Jeffries tube. She's like, no, that's totally fine. We can watch it together. I can watch it on my pad, and we can be together while doing that. It's it's not like you totally tried changing all your jobs just to be with me. And he's like, yeah. And we see Mariner in her bunk because they don't have crew quarters for the lower decks folks, and we see her calling a Ferengi named Quimp and saying hey, thanks for helping me with that ruse. And he's like, oh yeah, I did a pretty good job. I say human and everything. And I think it's very clear that Mariner sort of did the right thing here for Boimler. The guy really needed a victory, right? He needed a W on the board because he was just losing his faith in morale and what he was doing. And we close out with Tendi watching the pulsar on her pad, and Rutherford fixing stuff in the Jeffries tube, and they're both very enamored with what they're doing.
Yeah, there's definitely sort of that sort of interplay that you used to get between Kirk and Spock, where you've got the one character who's totally doesn't follow the rules and is real sort of reckless and just sort of wings it and says, what are you worried about court martial for? They're wonderful. And you got the other one that's by the book and doing the speed walking and wearing the dress uniform and all that kind of stuff. I like some of the cracks that she gets too, and she says it at one point. I don't know if you caught it, but she says, "I pulled some strings and got put on this mission," right? Mm-hmm. And we all know who her mom is, right? But and the joke about are you getting married later on? Because he's wearing the dress uniform kind of thing, which you only ever saw in Star Trek in funerals and marriages, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, for sure. Interesting. I mean, I watched this. I actually watched the episode twice because I wanted to go back and see who the voice actors were. Because the IMDb doesn't catch up until the show actually airs with the reporting, right? So and accidentally hit start again instead of pause. So I ended up watching the show again. So it was interesting to watch it again. It's watching it the second time through. It's kind of this. It really doesn't suck. I mean, it's actually very Trek-like, in a sort of animated, not Rick and Morty-esque, Bob's Burger kind of way, right? They're entertaining. They're not watch it once and don't watch it again. Some of those early TNG episodes, I can only take Patrick Stewart as the stern Picard so much, By the way, I was looking up his age. Did you know he was in his 40s when he was playing Captain Picard in TNG?
Yeah, that maps out.
Age gap.
Yeah. I think the thing that struck me about it is I've watched the first two episodes with my son, who has watched some Trek, but not a lot of Trek, not nearly the Trek that the three of us have watched. And he was definitely more, I watched it with him the first time and I was pausing so I could make some notes and stuff like that. And when I paused, he would say, well, who are they? Well, what's that? Well, what is that? And you realize how much the humor relies on your knowledge of Trek. It's the jokes about, There's a great bit where when they are in the market and they're looking for Corrin and they go to the booth with the Gach seller and the Gachseller is like really aggressive Klingon woman, and she says, we just want to get down on our knees and lick his boots like the Federation dogs that we are. And there's some good lines, but you kind of need to know, like, the Gach is a joke, the aggressiveness of the Klingons is a joke, the how the Klingons regard the Federation is a joke. Like, you kind of need that layer of knowledge to make the humor work. But I wonder how accessible this show is, and I'd love to get some feedback on how people are enjoying it who don't have the 50 years of Trek watching. Like, is this show something you could watch if you weren't a Trek fan and be like, oh, it's just funny? Or does the humor rely on your knowledge of Trek so much that if you didn't have it, I mean, Xavier watched it with me and he was laughing, and some of it was just darn funny. I mean, the lines about Corin pooping on his own sword, and like it's some of it is just humor, but a lot of it does lean on Trek knowledge. So I wonder if it's just catering to not a small niche, but a niche that is the sci-fi Trek fan, and all the in references. Again, I've got some flags written down here where they mention Aractogino, which of course is the drink from Deep Space Nine. They reference all the time. They mention Gach. Some of the jokes, the sort of Kobayashi Maru theme around Rutherford, Jamal Harone, that was a reference, of course. The dilithium burns, the Borg, of course, the shapeshifter, like you mentioned from the cartoon, the way the different groups on the ship work that Rutherford's going through, like the dynamics of the security team versus the medical team versus the engineering team, Andorians, Bolians, you kind of need the knowledge of that universe to sort of get around it. What a Ferengi is supposed to be like, or a stereotypical Ferengi is supposed to be like. I don't know. I wonder if that is something that might keep this from getting bigger than just a niche show for Trek fans. And I say that with the utmost respect. I laughed my ass off watching this. It was genuinely one of the funniest TV shows I've watched in a while. I thought the first episode was good. I thought this was even better and so much funnier.
Yeah, I think the pacing on this one's a little bit better because it's not doing as much, right? The very quick paced premiere has to do a lot, more so than most premieres have to do with much more time that they usually have, right? This is like 22 minutes that it had, and I felt like the pacing was pretty good on this one. I am kind of curious on how to evaluate what you're talking about, Jonathan, because I do get that sense, right? Granted, I'm a longtime fan of Star Trek, so I'm like, yeah, I totally get like most of the jokes. And it certainly means a lot more when I do. And I wonder if this is part of sort of the overall strategy that CBS has, right? Where I think on a spectrum for the three shows we've got from the new wave, I think Discovery is probably the most accessible to people because it doesn't, for the most part, until part of season 2, it doesn't really deal with a whole lot of like, you have to know who somebody is or what was going on. If you're, vaguely familiar with stuff that's in the mainstream consciousness about Kirk and Spock and the Enterprise, like you've got enough to get the gist, right? And then Picard, it tries to be, as newcomer friendly as possible, but still has to lean, fairly heavily on your knowledge of the character and his background from the Next Generation. And I think this show is sort of more on that, further extreme of like, it's really going to be pretty heavily predicated on your knowledge of, the series, the whole, universe as a whole. And I think that might be okay because it's not like before it was like, oh, dang, I'm going to have to wait like 7 years before they can make a show that I want to watch. Right now you're like, well, I'll just wait till a few more months or maybe next season. Right. And I think you've even got that other piece that's coming out that we haven't talked too much because we don't know much, but there's the like kids show for Nickelodeon, the Star Trek Prodigy, that who knows what that is, but I'm going to guess it's going to be a lot more similar to the style of the animated shorts we saw for the short treks. So I think it's making it sort of there's something for everyone, and this may not be your thing in this particular season, but that's okay. You may not even have to wait, more than part of a year or maybe just 1 year before the next thing comes out that you'll like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. I think you make a really good point, Jaime, about the sort of degrees of trekkiness, because one of the things that really caught me, it was just as a coincidence this week, Xavier said to me, I'd like to start watching Picard. He didn't watch Picard when it was on, but he's a fan of our show, and he wanted to listen to the episodes that we did of Spotcast, and so he wanted to watch Picard, but he wants to watch it with me because he wants the Trek knowledge. So he said...
Wait, spoilers, he's already listened to the show.
He did not listen to the recaps of Picard during our last season because he didn't want to be spoiled. He wanted to sit down with me and be able to pause and ask questions as we went. So we watched the first episode of Picard yesterday, and yeah, he had to stop maybe 8 or 10 times to say, so are we supposed to know, like, what's the history of this? What does this mean? Who are these people? Why are they there? What does this mean? I had to break down, and again, he's watched a little bit of Trek, but not a lot. And he watched Discovery and he really enjoyed it. But Discovery was, I think, catered more to the introductory audience. You could watch it with only a rudimentary understanding of pop culturally, like Spock and Kirk and the Enterprise, really. Like, if that's all you knew, you could still get into it. Whereas with Picard, you kind of needed to know, what was up with the Romulans. You needed to know about the history of the Borg. Mm-hmm. You needed to know about the assimilation of Picard, the whole, Locutus storyline. So I had to sort of, go over that with him. And again, it just made me realize, like, oh, it is not quite as accessible as Disco. And then in watching this one, again, we watched it together and he was laughing because some of it is it's just outright funny. But parts of it, he was like, are we, who are those blue guys and why does this matter? I'm like, oh, those are Andorians and they're one of the founding members of the Federation. Okay, well, then what are Bolians? And, so you start going through this stuff where, like, yeah, the humor of the situation is, the Ferengi playing the stereotype of a Ferengi is really funny for us because we're like, that's funny that this guy's like a cool Ferengi, but he's playing the, like, the first season TNG character of a Ferengi for this episode, right? You need that institutional knowledge of, I've watched hundreds and hundreds of hours of Star Trek in my life over the last, 40 years, right?
Yeah. Well, it's funny, like, I was watching the episode where Sarek and his wife, Ambassador Sarek and his wife, come to the Enterprise for the first visit. That's where the Andorian, we found out, that's where the Andorians are introduced, and it turns out there's a spy who's been made up to look like an Andorian. He's got a transmitter in his antenna. Mm-hmm. Spoilers for those of you who haven't watched that show, but it's been on, 40 years ago?
Yeah, almost 50, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't want to spoil this for Xavier, but, this pivotal scene where they introduce Sarek and his wife, and then Kirk turns to Spock and says, well, we got a few hours to kill before the conference. Do you want to beam down to Vulcan and say hello to your parents? Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to spoil it, but that kind of stuff that you don't know. You don't know. You sort of it makes sense when you watch the Sarek and the rest of the episodes, right? But you never really sort of get the you need to. There's sort of a deep core of knowledge that goes along with all of the characters, right? Like the Janeway maneuver. There's a Picard maneuver too, right? Mm-hmm. That's another one that comes up a lot in Star Trek. And then there's also how Kirk defeated the Kobayashi Maru, right? Which I'm kind of sad that they actually portrayed that in the new Star Trek, but because that was sort of always one of the mythos about Captain Kirk, was that he was the only cadet who passed that, right?
Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting to see if this sort of continues this way. Again, I think for people like us who are into it, like, I'm telling you, like, I love this episode. I did. I thought this was hilarious. I laughed out loud a bunch of times. For a fan like me who's way into this world and has that institutional knowledge, I laugh my butt off, and I'm way in on the show. But I could see how if you were trying to cater to a wider audience or garner new fans by having it in a more accessible format like a cartoon, I wonder how that...
according to IMDb, there's 20 episodes.
Not in one season.
Yeah, I think that might be because there's a 2-season order right when they started for
That's what I mean.
Yeah. So they've already confirmed a second season.
Right.
Yeah, like, I think there's a few. The episode titles are out, but not who's in them and what characters they play. Because as you know, I watch the show and I usually have the IMDb app with me just so I can do some fact checking on the actors and things like that. Right. There you go. Yeah, and there's 22 episodes. Sorry, I'm fact checking, and we know the first 4 titles. Well, we know those 4. Those are the ones that were sent to reviewers, right? All right. Anything else you want to say about this episode?
not this episode in particular, but I do appreciate that how the animated series gives them the ability to add a broader and more diverse range of crewmates and aliens and other stuff in the background that would have been very, very expensive to do with practical effects or CGI. So that's, it costs just as much money to draw one of the human main characters as it does to draw the Vendorian, right? So it is kind of cool that they can play with that more. Very similar to my understanding, the spirit of the animated series from the 70s that could also do, more things that would have been, practically impossible from a budgetary perspective.
Yeah. Actually, I just want to say something about watching the original series. I forgot about this thing that they used to do in the 60s when, Westerns were the thing. Like, you had all these Gunsmoky kind of shows and whatever, and there was always a brawl of some type, right? And there's always a brawl in almost every episode of the original series, right? Where Kirk will, just go toe-to-toe with a Klingon person or whatever. And Batman did the same thing, and the Green Hornet did it as well. But whenever there was a fight, they would take the star actors out of the picture, and they would put somebody in a similar colored shirt with a similar colored wig on, right? But the body shapes were completely different, right? And you're meant to think, oh, that's William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy having a fight with the Klingon actors, right? But it was so. I mean, even at like 6 and 7, I'm like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, the stunt performers were a little less on the ball or on the nose and they were
boxy too. Yeah, I mean, at least now they try and find a stunt double that looks physically like the other person. Right?
Yeah. The other two the things I wanted to just flag. There was a couple of throwaway jokes right at the very end of the episode as it was wrapping up. The tickets on the front of the shuttle.
Yeah,
that made me laugh. And
why is that?
Just the idea that like they're actually like parking tickets.
She's like, what are they going to do? Send me a bill?
Yeah, what are they going to send me a bill? And the other one was when they dropped Corin on the doorstep and he's just like hammered drunk. And they're like, well, the ambassador's here. And he's just like, grabs the Starfleet officer by the leg and says, fetch me my drinking horn. She goes, ew, no. Again, just that sort of level of goofiness in that world, which again, like, of course that's what a Klingon would be like. It's like, yeah, I just woke up. I'm probably still drunk, but I probably could use some more blood wine. Just, again, something about that level of institutional humor just sort of tickled my fancy.
And the joke is, why does every Klingon name have an apostrophe?
Have an apostrophe, exactly. Yeah.
Except for Worf, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But which is the first thing I thought of. And did you catch the name of the shuttle?
Oh yeah, I saw it. What does it say?
I forgot now. I was hoping you remember.
Yeah, no, I did see it, but I remember looking at
Kismet or something like that. Yeah. It was an interesting name. I forgot.
Oh, there's our fact check already for next week.
Yeah, that's interesting because I think in media I had read the Cerritos is a California class ship where apparently all of the ships of the class are named after cities, I guess, in California. And I think somebody had said that the shuttles are named after like rivers or bodies of water in California.
Good old the USS Toluca Lake.
I have the app on my iPad here. Let me see if I can pull it up.
And some other media I had read said that the yellow strip on the big painted line on the outside of the ship, that there are other other California class ships that have either a blue or a red strip, meaning that it signifies what their focus is as a crew. So the Cerritos is more of an operations engineering focused second contact crew. So that would, according to this media I was reading, it fits in line with how they were in the first episode going to the planet for second contact to set up a communications array to contact Federation.
Yeah, that was I had to explain that. That was one of the things I had to pause to explain to Xavier. Was he was saying, well, what do the different colors mean? And I said, okay, well, sure. So red is command, and blue is science and medicine, and yellow is engineering and tactical and security. And he's like, okay, but why does Kirk wear yellow? And I said, no, that's old Trek. That's a different thing. Well, I thought the guys who died were red. Why would the guys who wear red and died be on the command side? I'm like, oh no, that's old Trek. Never mind that. So yeah, I had to sort of explain that the colors have always always been the same colors, but there are the three colors. And he's like, well, why are engineering and tactical wearing the same uniforms? Wouldn't it make sense for them to have different colors? I'm like, listen, I'm not going to argue with you. This is just the way it is. But he did make a good point that, like, why would engineering get paired with tactical as far as color combination? And it never occurred to me, but I was like, damn, that kid's smart. He noticed that.
So I bought some little like pins, like Star Trek pins at one of the Comic-Cons a couple of years ago, and so I got a red one, a yellow one, and a blue one, which of course are the three, because engineering wore red, right? Like
in the original,
Scotty wore red. Yeah. So even though Scotty doesn't get killed every time he beams down, you know. Yeah, exactly. By the way, the name of the shuttle real-time follow-up is Yosemite.
Yosemite, yeah. See, I knew it was something familiar. Yeah.
Well, it was the name of an operating system from Apple for a while too.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
As well as a mountain.
And while we're, just to put a button on the colors stuff, I think this is the first time we've ever seen the same crew member in all three colors of uniform in the same episode.
Yeah, I can't recall any other reason there would have been.
Yeah, we might have seen.
The fact that he wore a different color for each role, he had a different color. You mean on? Yeah,
because we've seen them where alternate reality Captain Picard who never got stabbed. He ended up going into sciences, so he's wearing blue, and we've seen like Data or Worf wear the command red, but I don't think we've ever seen anybody wear all three, possibly period, but certainly not in the same episode.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Boimler wears red because he's on the command track. The same with Marner, I guess, right?
Yep.
So here, let me test your color perception here. Did you notice that in this end of the episode where Boimler's regaling everybody about his defeating this Ferengi guy in the bar, and there was an Andorian ensign there?
Yeah.
Don't remember.
I don't think I distinctly remember seeing them, no.
Oh, okay. No, the question was going to be what color shirt was the Andorian wearing?
Now I'm going to have to pay even more attention to these episodes? Bastard.
Yeah. Because your brain goes blue, right? But it wasn't. All right, cool. Let's move on to our watch list stuff, though. What you got this time, honey, for the watch list?
Yeah, mine is a Rick and Morty video. It's about 8 to 10 minutes long, I think, and it's an episode, like a short style episode from Adult Swim that is done in the style of an anime, and it's in Japanese.
Oh, really?
It's got English subtitles. It's the voice acting is super Japanese anime style. They're even in the Kabukicho area of Tokyo. It's kind of crazy as it is, and the proclamation here is that it has a bombshell revelation of sort of epic proportions if this was considered canon. With Rick and Morty, you just never really know. They play fast and loose with canon, so who knows, but it's sort of more fuel for the conspiracy fan theories that people have. It's worth a watch.
Yeah, I like some of they've done a few of those like weird sort of change the art style, change the people, creators working with them on that stuff. It's interesting to see what they can do with those characters. Remember they did that weird Australian one a couple of years ago, right?
Rick and Morty?
Yeah.
Like not part of the actual show, or?
No, it's I'm trying to remember what the name of. I bought it on iTunes.
There was I think another one from this same kind of series where they did it as like a samurai era Rick and Morty episode. Not like the main show episode, Tim. These are more like
they're like
one-offs.
Rick and Morty Bush World Adventures. So on this episode of the critically acclaimed show Bush World Adventures, now celebrating its 10th season, we join our heroes Rick and Morty as they seek out the mysterious green cube of Bendigo. Will they succeed? It's weird. It's only 11 minutes long, but it's like completely crazy, weird, bizarro episode set in Australia with the Australian voices, but they look like Rick and Morty. The animation style is more like Bush World. It's weird, but it's definitely worth checking out on iTunes. It came out in 2018. That was way back.
Jonathan, what do you got for us?
Wait. What?
No. Well, I saw a holiday special and got scared.
Oh, no. Be scared. So this came over today, and this made me laugh out loud, too. The Lego Star Wars Holiday Special is coming to Disney+. Learn the true meaning of Life Day with the festive celebration of the entire Skywalker saga in the charming Lego style on November 17th. I'm going to read this. This is I kudos to the people at StarWars.com. It's the most wonderful time of the year on Kashyyyk, and Lego Star Wars fans are invited to journey back to Chewbacca's homeworld for a Wookiee-sized celebration of the galaxy's most cheerful and magical holiday, Life Day. For those of you who have watched the 1978 Star Wars Holiday Special, perhaps one of the worst things to ever have been done to the Star Wars franchise, and I'm including the prequels. I love that they're doing this. So they're gonna do. This is set in sort of the third trilogy era. So it's Rey, Finn, Poe, Chewie, Rose, R2, BB-8, but paying slight homage to Life Day, 1978 Star Wars Holiday Special, which was just a television atrocity. B. Arthur singing, Mark Hamill in too much makeup. The only thing that redeems it is the debut, of course, of Boba Fett, done by Canada's Nelvana Studios. But they're going to do this holiday special, and apparently it's going to be tied into this year's 2020 Lego Star Wars Advent Calendar that's coming out in September. So some of the characters are going to overlap, and and there's going to be for kids, there's going to be like a sticker book, and this is awesome. I am totally on board. I think this is excellent.
All right, cool. Yeah, that whole holiday special was what they used to do with movies and stuff like that back in the day. They would do a really bad television ad. It'd be on like Donnie and Marie show and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's like Art Carney and B. Arthur. Yeah. There's like a musical number in the cantina where B. Arthur sings. Chewbacca's family. The first maybe 8 straight minutes of the special, nobody says a word in English. It's all just the Wookiees grunting at each other. There's no subtitles. Right. It is so fantastically bad. I have a bootleg VHS from back in the day. Of course, you can find it on YouTube now. If you haven't seen it, for the love of God, watch it, because it is so unintentionally funny. It is just so horribly bad. I love that they're going to pay homage to that, and I'm sure there'll be lots of little digs in there for people who are fans of that. This is what happens when George Lucas gets rid of the company. This is what people will do to bring things back around.
By the way, so I don't have a pick this week, but I just found Butt World, which is a Rick and Morty. It looks like a claymation episode that they must have done.
Oh, nice.
On Adult Swim. Yeah.
I don't know if Lego is going to make any figures or minifigs from this special, but I probably would get a Lego B. Arthur if they go that far with it, just to say that I have it.
Oh, so good.
The red stormtrooper in the little clip they got here too, like from the new show.
It's a snazzy design. Yeah, it works.
Yeah, but it's funny because it looks like it's sort of quasi it's combined. Because if you look at the still they have here, there's a red stormtrooper. There's the newest trilogy
the glowing
stormtroopers
too.
But there's also Qui-Gon, not Qui-Gon. It's Mace Windu and some of the other Jedi are there. So it looks like they're sort of mashing things up a little bit too. Maybe they're telling stories because it says they're telling the whole story of the Skywalker saga. So I assume they're going back and telling the story of because it says the part at the beginning says they are reuniting to celebrate the entire Skywalker saga. So I assume all 9 episodes.
Wow.
Yeah, and if you take a look at that same image, you see Darth Maul, who has either been recently bisected or was very inconveniently half buried in the desert sand.
Yeah. I think the joke is that he's a half a guy now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He's lost his feet.
Goofy.
Lego pieces got lost. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I guess that's it for another week. So, Jonathan, people want to get in touch with you. Where would they find you?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram as @JPK News.
And Jaime, if people want to get in touch with you?
I'm on Twitter as @DevWithTheHair.
All right. As usual, my name is Timitra, TIMMITRA. On the Twitter machine is where you'll find me. And so until next time, we'll see you in the future.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Spotcast podcast. This is Jean-Luc Picard. Shut up, Wesley. Sorry, say again. Just the tag. Gotcha. If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spotcast website at spotcast.com. You can get in touch with us on the website or follow us on Twitter @Spotcast. If you have feedback or questions, send us a tweet with the hashtag AskSpotcast. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount at patreon.com/Spotcast. You can find details on how to help us on our website, spotcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
What do you think the chant will be for the Kraken? It's Go Leafs Go. It's Let's Go Raptors. What are the cheers in Seattle, Jaime?
Let's see. There's complicated ones for the Sounders, and the only one I can really participate in is half the stadium on one side says Seattle, and the other side responds with Sounders. Yeah. Right. There's that.
That's not a bad call and repeat.
I can't remember. Yeah, I can't remember what the Sonics had, and the Seahawks don't really have one. It's just loud noise. As much as possible.
Beer! Woo!
Just yell and scream and just be the loudest in the league.
Thank you for shortening your lives for our benefit. Woo!
It's funny, a friend of mine works for CAMH, right, which is a Canadian Center for Mental Health or whatever. Mental health. Addiction and mental health. And so when I said that the nickname would be the Crackheads, she's like, I'm opposed to that name.
Yeah, I bet you are. Yeah. I have a follow-up question, Jaime. Jaime, do you root for the Portland Trailblazers now as your local basketball team, or does that make you want to shoot yourself?
It was challenging given the history between the Jailblazers and the Sonics. But, I used to work for a company headquartered in Portland, so I sort of had to adopt them for a while, but I don't anymore. So now I'm sort of like a Ronin samurai without a master. So I've largely gone for the Lakers for no other reason than stardom and it's a popular team.
Yeah, I had a friend who I used to work with, another journalist, and he used to have an expression where he said, "I always root for the overdog." I said, "The overdog?" He said, "Yeah, not the underdog, the overdog." I said, "What does that mean?" He says, "I'm a Cowboys fan, I'm a Lakers fan, I'm a Yankees fan." I'm like, "So you're a Fairweather fan? You just want to root for the winners?" He's like, "Yeah, it's awesome. My teams always win." I'm like, I guess that's true. I mentioned this, Jaime, because right now in the background I've got the Jailblazers playing the Brooklyn Nets. Well, they're not the Jailblazers anymore. They were the Jailblazers for an unfortunate amount of time in the early 2000s. They kept having legal issues in the Rasheed Wallace era.
Yeah, Tim, they're more properly the Trailblazers if you use their full name. But when they did have a whole bunch of people involved with the law, people mockingly called them the Jailblazers.
Yeah, the fact that Sheed got what, 30 techs in a season too? That guy was a one-man wrecking crew on his own team.
Tim, you have the chapter setup in MTJC. Are you doing the same? I didn't look. Did you do the same for this as well?
I did briefly, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so even very coarse-grained chapters, I think, ends up helping people for that.
Well, so, I mean, it was Sean who said that, yeah, he wanted us to put titles. I didn't realize it was so easy, to be honest. Well, it's not super easy, but you can actually, if you open it in Overcast or Apple iTunes, whatever, here's the show right here, Lower Decks. I can actually just hit play.
Well, again, I have two sons. They're both in there.
So I can go back to the fact check.
You have a really old fact check
for
intro. This podcast. This is episode 6.
Or the watch list.
Let's move on to the watch list.
I think it's helpful to, like Jonathan mentioned, just to mention briefly what we're going to do. I can agree with that, because people who are they just have us in a big playlist while they're driving around or something. That would make sense. And then for people who are actively manipulating their phone, they can actually just see from the chapters.
Well, I don't know if you've noticed or not, but I always name the episode of Spotcast after the episode we're talking about. That might be a hint.
Yeah, I think that's definitely.
But if somebody's driving and we're in their playlist of things to come, they may not necessarily know.
Yeah, but if they're looking at their CarPlay, they'll see that it says Lower Deck Second Contact.
But what if they're in a dinosaur car like my wife?
Well, then why are they listening to podcasts? Isn't it dangerous to be doing that while they're driving?
Time to buy a BMW Series 5 so you can unlock your car.
That's true.
Your phone. Yeah. And if you can do that, then it has CarPlay too.
Did you guys talk about an MJTC? The talk that they were going to do.
What's MJTC?
Or MTJC? Sorry. BMW was talking about doing the subscription service for heated seats and all that stuff
to the phone.
No, they were going to do it as part of, like, you don't get those as, like, they put them in your car, but to activate them, you have to have a monthly subscription.
No way.
Oh,
really?
yeah.
Oh, my God.
I'd seen that, but I don't think we talked about it on the show.
Oh, my God. That seemed like perfect MJTC stuff. Like,
yeah.
That made me laugh. Xavier and I got a
tell
huge
those guys
laugh
over
at
at MJTC that they should cover that.
Yeah, more just than code. I'm going to start a rival podcast called More Just Than Code.
Yeah, you can call it, what was that other one called? Diadem or something like that? Or what's it called? Here, hang on. I've got it on my link here. Oh, Pod Attack. Pod Attack is the name of that podcast I was talking about last week that stole our name.
What?
They have an episode called Spotcast.
Oh, right.
Pod Attack. I don't know. Maybe they're like criticizing podcast. You got to listen to it. I know you speak German and stuff like that, but you know, yeah. Like I said, I did translate it. It just seemed to me like they were rambling. So they mentioned Spock and Kirk at the very
That's just
beginning.
what Germans do too, you know.
Yeah, is it? Okay.
They're rambling
not
people.
not like we're like, you know, constantly, you know.
Not like they're on point like us.
All right, speaking of which,